was a quiet Sunday morning in Warner Robins, Georgia, until a terrified 5-year-old boy burst out of his apartment, screaming for help. Inside, his mother and grandmother, both shot dead. What happened inside that home? Why would a man freshly released from prison murder the woman he once claimed to love? And did anyone see the signs before it was too late? This is not just a story of love gone wrong. It's a chilling reminder of how domestic violence hides in plain sight. You're watching True Crime Simplified, where we break down real-life crime. Simply, but never without the truth. If you care about justice, awareness, and protecting those who can't protect themselves, hit that subscribe button. Let's uncover what really happened. On May 25th, 2025, the quiet town of Warner Robins, Georgia, was shaken by a tragic double homicide. Redashia, Boston, a 29-year-old nurse with a bright future ahead, and her 49-year-old mother, Virginia Boston, were found brutally murdered inside their apartment. At the center of this senseless act was Rashad Williams, a 29-year-old man who had only recently been released from prison. Rashad was once in a relationship with Redashia, and authorities believe this was no random attack. It was a deeply personal and violent act. Rashad now faces 2 counts of murder, and the investigation into their deaths quickly revealed disturbing details about the nature of his relationship with Redashia. The day of the murders, law enforcement responded to the scene at 6:35 a.m. following an emergency call. What they discovered was horrifying. Both women were dead, victims of gunshot wounds. As detectives pieced together the evidence, they learned more about Rashad's history with Redashia and Virginia, which was filled with tension and violence. Family members and friends later revealed that Rashad had shown disturbing behavior, including controlling tendencies, threats, and violent outbursts. Rashad's release from prison just days before the killings seemed to set the stage for a violent confrontation. Despite the red flags, no one could have predicted that this would end in murder. Authorities soon learned that Rashad had been struggling with mental health issues. The day before the murders, he allegedly made threats of suicide, showing how unstable he had become. This tragic end was the culmination of escalating violence in their relationship, a pattern that had been building for months. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly love can turn deadly when violence is ignored, and when those who need help the most don't get it in time. She was committed to providing for her son, giving him a life filled with love and security. It was Virginia who had been there for Redashia through the worst of her relationship with Rashad Williams. It was Virginia who would offer her support when the tensions between them reached their breaking point. But no one could have imagined that their bond would come to such a tragic end. Virginia, too, became a victim, caught in the violence meant for her daughter. And in those final moments, both mother and daughter would lose their lives to someone who had once been part of their world. The pain of their loss echoed through the community. At the center of this tragedy was the toxic relationship between Redashia Boston and Rashad Williams, a relationship that was anything but healthy. While on the outside, they appeared to be a couple trying to make it work, the reality was far more complicated. Rashad, who had only recently been released from prison, and Redashia had been in an on-and-off relationship for some time. But behind closed doors, things were far from ideal. She'd gone through this cycle before, hoping each time that things would get better, only to be hurt again. Rashad's behavior was increasingly erratic. He had a history of violence, which started before his time in prison. But even after his release, he failed to change. Rather than seeking help or therapy, he returned to his old patterns. What many don't understand about domestic violence is how easy it is to get trapped in a cycle of manipulation and fear. It's not always physical violence that keeps someone in an abusive relationship. It's often the emotional control and the promise of change that makes it so difficult to leave. But in the end, the violence that had been lurking beneath the surface for so long finally exploded. At approximately 6:35 a.m., emergency dispatch received a call that would send shockwaves through the community. Deputies from the Houston County Sheriff's Office responded to the Woodland Trail apartment complex in Warner Robins. Inside, they discovered the bodies of Redashia Boston and her mother Virginia Boston. Both had been fatally shot. By this point, Rashad Williams, the man suspected of the murders, was nowhere to be found. Deputies quickly identified him as the prime suspect. Later in the day, at 4 p.m., Rashad was located by law enforcement in Worth County, about an hour's drive from Warner Robins. He was found in an abandoned farmhouse, hiding out after fleeing the scene of the crime. Rashad was arrested without incident, and authorities transported him to the Houston County Detention Center, where he was charged with 2 counts of murder. As the investigation continued, it became clear that this had been an act of intense rage, one that had been building for months, fueled by escalating emotional abuse, unresolved mental health issues, and an unrelenting sense of control. The manhunt for Rashad Williams was swift. Law enforcement in Houston County wasn't going to let him slip through their fingers. This was not his first run-in with the law. He had previously been incarcerated for violent offenses. Domestic violence is a pervasive and deadly problem. Authorities have made it clear that 9 out of 10 homicides this year were connected to intimate partner violence. This statistic serves as a chilling reminder of how deeply ingrained the issue is in the community and how often it remains hidden in plain sight. In fact, many of the victims of domestic violence never report it. They suffer in silence, afraid to speak up, or unable to break free from the control of their abusers. For Redashia, the warning signs were clear: abuse, threats, emotional manipulation. But like so many others trapped in these cycles, she found it difficult to escape. Research shows that domestic violence is often a slow burn. It starts with small incidents, words, and actions that escalate over time. The victim might feel isolated, controlled, or manipulated, and eventually, the abuse becomes more overt, more dangerous. But by then, it's often too late to walk away without a severe consequence. The cycle of abuse is real, and it's dangerous. According to statistics from organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. That's not just a number, it's a reality for millions of people, including Redashia. The broader context of this case forces us to ask, how many more women and men are out there, living in fear, trapped in relationships like Dashia's? How many more children will be forced to grow up without their parents because of violence they couldn't stop? If there's one thing that stands out in the wake of this tragedy, it's the need for awareness, intervention, and support. Without these, the cycle of domestic violence will continue to claim lives, just as it did with Redashia and Virginia Boston. As we remember Redashia and Virginia Boston, it's clear, domestic violence often hides in plain sight. The signs, control, manipulation, isolation, are there. But victims like Redashia can feel trapped. If you or someone you know is suffering, help is available. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. If you're in immediate danger, call 911. As Rashad Williams faces trial for the murders of Redashia and Virginia Boston, stay updated on this case by subscribing to True Crime Simplified. We'll follow the trial and bring you all the updates as they unfold. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, remember, help is available. Don't wait. Reach out. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and always remember, the truth is worth finding.